All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another session of TCS NQT preparation. So that is Ninja NQT preparation. Welcome to another session. Just before I begin, I want to thank everybody who's been online for some time. So Pujita is again the first one to be online today. Hi Pujita, thank you for being online, and other students also. I see a lot of you students have certain questions. So generally the way we do this session is I will be solving one particular coding question today, and at the end of the session, I'll be taking question answers also. So while you might be getting question answers or doubts, make sure you type them in the comment on the right hand side. There's a chat and the comment box. Type it. My team is looking into it and we'll reply back as soon as we are done with the session. So there's a good 10-20 minutes at the end of this session where we'll be doing question and answers. So what I'm going to cover today is again with just 3-4 days left for a TCS NQT, that is the national qualifier test for the TCS Ninja role. What is it that you should be preparing for? And we'll be looking at one coding question specifically, and that coding question's name is solving alphabet pattern. So the question's name is alphabet pattern. It's a fairly simple pattern, but what we are going to learn today is the trick to solving these pattern questions. I covered a similar pattern question before, but we are supposed to solve the trick or get the trick for solving these pattern questions. So I'll explain it to you in that way, and hopefully you can do a lot more practice by yourself on how actually these pattern questions are supposed to be solved. All right, so without much delay, let's get started. I know there are a lot of new students today, so I'm going to take about 5 minutes to explain the pattern of NQT if some of you don't know the pattern of NQT. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes to do that. The students who have been already watching our sessions before, please just have some patience, spend 5 minutes, and then after that we'll start the coding session. So in NQT, you have generally these sections. So this is as per last year's pattern, and again it could change this year again, but generally we expect it to have these sections at least. So the first one is English, quants, then there is programming MCQs, and then there is coding. In the programming MCQs, you will be given certain MCQs and you're supposed to give the answers. In coding, you have to actually write the code, and depending on your code solution, you should be able to pass all of the test cases or not. So that is what coding is about. No surprises here that coding has the most number of marks. It is the most difficult and has the most number of marks. Similarly, with programming MCQs, when you combine both of these together, it accounts to about 43, which is more than 50% of the entire thing. So for those of the students who have not even started coding, I highly suggest you better start coding right now. English and quants, even with a last minute brush up, you can do. But if you did start any coding right now, you will be having a lot of problems in trying to cope up later on. So please start with all of your coding practice right now. In fact, on the Edyst platform, we have a total of 20 TCS previously asked questions. Complete all of them as soon as possible. Now, coming to English and quants and even programming MCQs, one thing I want you all to remember is be very careful of the negative marking. So generally each question has its own rule about how the negative marking is going to be. It could be that one of the questions could have a -2 negative marking, another could have a -1. So it goes on a question by question basis. It's not even like a section basis. Make sure you read the instructions very carefully, because a lot of students, when there is no negative marking, you will feel like, hey, let's guess this one, let's at least attempt it. So make sure that you check each question, is there negative marking. No need to go and do a lot of research. Just be mindful, just keep it in your mind that it could have a certain negative marking, and just keep it in your mind and then attempt the question accordingly. So that's one major thing I want to tell you, that in all of the MCQs, make sure you know about the negative marking parts. Coming to the other things about the syllabus for both of them. So again, as I've been mentioning in the previous videos, I'll just very briefly mention here that you have the increment decrement operators asked in the programming MCQs, along with pointers, order notation, which is nothing but your order n square. You might have seen this, and searching, sorting, like bubble sort, selection sort, and those kind of things. For this, probably on the Wednesday webinar, we are going to get all of the previous years programming MCQs on the platform, and we'll discuss a lot of the MCQs. So probably Wednesday we will not be doing some coding, but we'll actually discuss a lot of the programming MCQs. For coding, as I've been saying from previously, that these are the topics we in the previous webinars we have covered some of the topics related to maths. For example, these math and conditional, we covered a leap year topic. That was one of the first ones. So I do urge you to go and check it out. We will have the links of all of the previous tutorials in the descriptions. So all of the previous webinars will be there in the descriptions as well. So leap year was one such question. Loops, we already covered one patterns question today. We'll cover another patterns question today. So loops and patterns, we'll cover another one today. Arrays and strings. So in arrays and strings, we'll cover one soon. Strings, I had covered one last time called string arrangement. So string arrangement, if you've not seen them, please go and check them out. It's not so much about the logic, it's also about how do you manipulate strings. If a string is given, how do you start from a particular point, go till the end point. Those are some of the things you should really be familiar with, because the algorithm might change, you'll have a different question, but these tricks won't change. So please make sure you remember that. Arrays, we'll cover one soon. So we'll either cover something on sorting, or we'll cover something on just general arrays questions. So we'll cover one probably tomorrow. And loops and patterns, we've covered one before, we'll cover one again today. So without much delay, let me just start by at least talking about what this question is about. And let me just open the Edyst platform for that. So I'm just opening up the Edyst platform. Here it is. This is part of the TCS previous year's questions module, which is overall part of this complete coding test and interview preparation pack that we have created. This pack is not only for TCS, which is going to happen on 3rd and 4th, which is Saturday, Sunday, but it is also for your Mindtree, AMCAT, Wipro, all of the upcoming campus rounds. So with just one pack, you can prepare for all of these companies. In fact, after TCS, right after TCS, I believe Wipro is going to do their national qualifier. So, to be ready for that, we have the AMCAT previous year's questions and also the Wipro previous year's questions. So we have all of these from before. So make sure that, you sign up for this program, and at least you are then able to not only attempt the TCS previous year's questions, but all the other ones also. So let's go to TCS previous year's questions, and in this also we have divided it very specifically as maths, loops and patterns, strings, in specific topics. Our current question today, the question for today, is loops and patterns. And so the loops and patterns question that we are going to do today is called Pawan and his alphabet pattern. Okay, so that's the question we're going to look at today. Just before I open this question and speak, a friendly reminder to all of you, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because if you subscribe, you will get the notifications not only for today's webinar, but also the webinar we are going to do on programming MCQs and the webinar that we're going to do on arrays. So every time we do a webinar, you will get a notification. Click subscribe, and also click the bell icon so you will get the notification too. So make sure you do that, click subscribe. Also, please share this video with your friends. The more people who know about it, the more you can discuss with them, the more solutions you will get. And like the video, like and share, so that even your friends can study. Don't study alone, share with your friends, that will be good. Anyways, coming back to the question. So what the question says is, let me just open the question. Okay. So the question says, Pawan is a kindergarten teacher, some English, and wants to teach his students English alphabet. So he gives them blocks which has alphabets inscribed on it, and asks them to arrange it in order based on the below fashion. Okay. So what we are basically given is some story, but finally we are given this pattern over here, which is like A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A, which is basically, if the input is 4, the output has to be something like this, right? So A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A. So we have to write a program that takes as input a number and outputs a certain pattern, right? So how do we go about doing that? Whenever you're given such a question, or any question, it need not be patterns, but any such question, the first thing you should do is never code. Do not start with code. I keep telling you, and I will keep telling you, don't ever just start with the code. Make sure that you've understood the question properly, that you've understood the logic properly, and then only start coding. Because if you start coding too early, then you will get stuck in both logical errors as well as syntax errors. The thing with syntax errors is they can be solved, but if your logic is wrong and also your syntax is wrong, it gets very confusing. So just take a little time, take about 5 minutes, write down the logic for it, and then go ahead and code it. So let's take this example over here. So we have input 4 and output has to be A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A. The first thing to do is any pattern question, try out different inputs. So let's just to see if you understood the problem or not. For example, if the input is 2, what would be the output? The output would be A, B, A. What about if the input was 3? It would be A, B, A, C, B, A. Now what if the input is 5? It would be A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A, and E, D, C, B, A, right? So just write down at least for the first 5. It's very good to do that. Over here we can start noticing a pattern. Now even before I go to the trick of how to solve a pattern question, just by doing this exercise of mentioning all of the inputs and getting all of the outputs, just by this exercise we have figured out 2-3 things over here. That is, look at the number of rows, it is exactly equal to the input. At every line what we are doing is we are getting the decreasing order. That is, we are always starting from a certain alphabet and we're decreasing all the way to A. That's how what we're doing over here. So some of the patterns we have got. Let's officially check how to find this answer. In any patterns question, your first step must always be how many rows are there. So let's say you have this given pattern which we had. So we had the pattern over here of 4 and we are supposed to print out A, B, A, C, B, A, and sorry for that, yeah, A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A, and so on, right? So how many rows are there? And your answer should always be okay, sorry, let me just move to the slides. I think I missed out, I was not on the slides, so I'll just repeat the last part again. All right, so at this point, what I was discussing was, whenever you are given a pattern, the first thing that you should do is write down all of the possible outputs. So for example, for 4 we had the output A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A. Similarly, for 2 we had A, B, A. For 3 we had A, B, A, C, B, A. For 5 we had A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A, E, D, C, B, A. That's what we did. Now, as I was saying earlier, but I don't think you all were seeing the screen at that time, it was that just by writing this, just this exercise of writing out this the output for any input gives us so much information. For example, I can completely see over here that for 5 I have 5 rows, for 2 I have 2 rows, for 3 I have 3 rows, and so on. Like for 4 I have 4 rows. So that's what I have over here. It becomes easier for us just to understand this. Let's officially see how to solve it. And these are the 3 questions I ask whenever I am given a patterns question. These 3 questions more often than not will get you your answer. For example, in this case where we had input as 4, we had A, B, A, C, B, A, and D, C, B, A. Now how many rows did we have over here? We had exactly 4 rows. So the first answer that we have for this particular case, it was 4. If the input is 3, we'll have 3 rows. For 2, 2 rows. So for n, how many rows will we have? We will have n rows. How many columns do we have? Well, over here in the first row we have 1 column, in the second row we have 2 columns, in the third row 3 columns, in the fourth row 4 columns, right? So we have row number of columns, that is, we have for the ith row we have I columns. So for the third row we had 3 columns, for the fourth row we had 4 columns, and so on. So that's what we have over here. And what is the pattern of the elements? The pattern of the elements is that it will always end in A, right? Can you see that? It will always end in A. It will start at a certain point, but it always ends in A. So for example, in the second row, it starts at B, it ends at A, and the fourth row, it starts at D, ends at A. So if we know the starting point, we just have to keep repeating till we reach the end point. That's all we have to do. So it always ends at A. In the first row we just have A, in the second row we start at some particular alphabet and then we keep on going till A, so on and so forth. So if we know the starting point in each row, we know that we have to end at A, and how many columns we'll have? We will have n number of columns, so that is row number of columns. So we know these 3 things right now. Always start by asking these specific questions, because once you ask these questions, the logic for this becomes much more clearer, and we'll see how we can do that. Let's have a look at the pseudocode for this. The first thing we're going to do is take input n, and we know for sure we want to print n rows. So over here we had 4, so we had 4 rows. Over here we had 2 rows, and then 3 rows, and so on, right? For 5 we had 5 rows, like that. So for n rows we have to print, for n we have to print n rows, but for each row what should we do? That is the actual question, because we will print n rows, but for each row what should we do? Now just to print n rows, just to even like think over here, we need a for loop, right, or a loop. So we'll take a loop to print the n rows, and then we have to do something inside. This will loop n times. So we'll do something inside over here, but we know just by this that we need one for loop that loops n times. It will have a start position, end position, but ultimately it will be looping n times. What should we do inside it? Well, we should be printing a certain number of columns or certain number of elements. Like for each element we have, for each row we have row number of elements. What does this mean? Let's just again look at the example. We had A, B, A, C, B, A, D, C, B, A, right? So in the first row we had one element, second row 2 elements, third row 3 elements, and so on, fourth row 4 elements. So for each row we need row number of elements, right? That's how many times you have to do. So just again picturize this. We had a for loop that was running about n times, right? Now we will have another for loop that will run about row number of times. That's what will happen. We'll have a for loop that runs n times, and then we'll have a for loop that runs row number of times, which will be printing row number of elements. What those elements are, we've still not figured out. That is, we will just come to that in the next slide. But already we can understand that just by writing it like this, we know that we have to do one for loop to print the rows, another for loops to print the elements. Then how do we print the elements? We are printing the elements in decreasing order. Like I just said, we are starting at a certain point, let's say D, but we are making sure that by decreasing it is going all the way up till A, right? So we have to have a start point and we have to have an end point, right? And let's look at a bigger, visualization. We had A, we had BA, right? We had CBA, then we had DCBA, correct? If I had to explain this in terms of A, so if we just had to explain this in terms of A, what would it actually be? Let's understand that better. So for example, A we have over here, let's say A is 0, let's just say. So B is, in that case, B would be 1, A would be 0, C would be 2, 1, 0, D would be 3, 2, 1, 0, right? That's what's actually happening, that we are decreasing from one element all the way up to 0 if A is treated as 0. This will be very important, because I just urge you to go and check my previous webinar where we had talked about string arrangement. And in string arrangement, we had talked about how you can treat a character as an integer. So if I just add, for example, if I have a character like this, character A, and if I do +1, you will actually get B. This is true for C and C++. If you do A +1, you will actually get B. So we can use this property to do this, that if we generated this pattern, we just needed to convert it, and we need to add 1 to A and we'll get B. You add 0 to A, you'll get A, and so on. So that's what we are going to do. I'll just open up and write the actual code in front of you, and then we'll see what we have to do. So this is the last part. Let's come to this at the end. If we can at all generate this pattern 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 3, 2, 1, 0, then we know we are safe. So let's come to this part and try to do at least these number of things. Take input n, print n rows, and for each row print row number of elements. Let's do that and it will become clearer to us. So this time just moving back to the Edyst platform and writing the code. Alright, so again I would say that everybody has to become really comfortable with writing code online. The reason is, even in the NQT you're supposed to write the code in their editor. You will not be allowed to write in your own editor. So make sure you get comfortable, because excuse me, a lot of students are comfortable in writing the code in their compiler because they don't know all the test cases. You should get comfortable with passing all of the hidden test cases, and in our case we have the run and the submit. Run shows you shown test cases, submit gives you certain hidden test cases. So what I'll quickly do is, for C, Let me write the basic code, that is hash include int main return 0. All of that is the very basic stuff, and this you should know already by heart. Like, you should not be thinking of it over there. This you should know by heart already. So let me quickly write this part. Okay, I'm just writing it. All right, so we've written this part, which is, this is the very basic stuff of C. Again, if you're using a different programming language, that's completely fine. Even on the Edyst platform, we have support for all of the other languages. So just make sure you choose the one which you are most comfortable with. Just going back to the slides, what does it want us to do? We have to take input n, print n rows, and in each row number of elements. Okay, let's do that. So first things first, take input n and then print n rows. So let's do that. Int n, taking input n would be scanf, so scanf mod d, and it would be and n. That's what we have over here. So we took input n, then we are supposed to print n rows. So how do we print n rows? Let us just do a for loop for int I equal to 1, I less than equal to n, I plus plus. So this will be our n rows. Now for each row, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to print I number of elements. So let's take another loop for int j is equal to, now we can do j equal to 1, j less than equal to I. This is one of those things we can do. Or we can do j equal to I, j greater than equal to 1, j minus minus. Both of them achieve the same thing. But if you remember, instead of counting up from 1 to I, if we count I to 1, we will go in a decreasing order. And if we are going in a decreasing order, then it will help us in finding out the actual pattern, because the pattern was also in a decreasing order. So we will make the choice here of not doing increasing repetition but decreasing. They will both give us I number of repetitions, but one of them gives an increasing order, one of them a decreasing order. So we'll use a decreasing order over here. So what we got is j is equal to I, j greater than equal to 1, j plus plus. All right. Now one thing we'll do is, just before this, we'll do some char alphabet is equal to a. All right. So we have kept this on the side. Then what we'll do is, notice over here, what are the values that are going to be of I? I is going to be, in the first row, I is going to be just 1. In the second row, I is going to be 2, 1. In the third row, it's going to be 3, 2, 1, right? When it's 1, we want to print A. When it's 2, 1, we want to print B, A. When it's 3, 2, 1, we want to print C, B, A, right? And again, just taking it up, what is A? A is nothing but alpha plus 0, right? BA, and what is alpha? Alpha here is our A. So BA is alpha plus 1, and we have alpha plus 0. Similarly, CBA is alpha plus 2, alpha plus 1, alpha plus 0, right? So just look at this above. We have j values 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. At every point we are going to print alpha plus 0 over here. In this case, alpha plus 1 and alpha plus 0, alpha plus 2, alpha plus 1, alpha plus 0. What it looks like we are doing is we are printing j plus alpha minus 1, or it's nothing but alpha plus j minus 1. Because j is 3, at that time we are printing alpha plus 2. When j is 2, we are printing alpha plus 1. And when j is 1, we are printing alpha plus 0. So if we store this in a temp variable, temp character, right, at that time, and let's just comment this out 1 second so that doesn't interfere with our code. Right, so we just commented it out. So what we have here is char temp is equal to alpha plus j minus 1, and let's just print that char, okay, with a space after it, and we'll just print it. All right, so we got this, and then after we print a row, we have to print a new line. Okay, so I hope you all understood this part. If you didn't, just please type on the chat and I'm happy to explain it again. Let's run and see whether this runs, whether we have some very simple compilation errors or not. Let's just see if it's run or not. And yeah, the test cases have passed. If they've passed, I think it should submit as well. All right, and yes, it has submitted. Great. But again, let's just go back and have a recap of what we did over here. The first thing that we did was we recognized how many rows we have to print. That is n. That is n is the number of rows we have to print. So we took input n. For each row, we are printing a certain number of elements. So those elements are nothing but a decreasing order of the alphabets. And in fact, if you are going in C++, then the good part is those decreasing order of alphabets is nothing but decreasing order of integers, because you can always add the integer to your character. You can always add the integer to the character and convert it to another character. So you had a plus 1 is b, a plus 2 is c. So literally your a, b, a, c, b, a got converted. It got converted into 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 3, 2, 1, 0, and you can always get this back from, you can get this pattern back from such a pattern. That's what we had used. But the important thing to note here was, till we got till this part, it was, this is the part which took the most time. After that, this part was fairly simple, because we had already understood how many elements are there, how many rows are there. So we understood how we can actually create a decreasing order, right? So that's just taking a recap. We printed n, we took input n, printed n rows. For each row, we know there are row number of elements and we have to print them in their decreasing order. And again, it's not just as simple as printing in the decreasing order. Here, just before we wrote it, it's very good. This I wrote here so that you could all see, but generally I write this part in the in my pen and paper. So you can see that when it's 1, it's alpha plus 0. 2, 1, it's alpha plus 1 and alpha plus 0. 3, 2, 1, it's alpha plus 2, alpha plus 1, alpha plus 0. So at any given point, we are using j as the column number to tell us which character we're supposed to print. So yes, I hope you understood that part. This will only become much more clearer to you with practice. So I urge you, we have not only this, we have a lot of loops and patterns questions, which I really suggest that you go ahead and do it yourself, because you just need to do these. If you are able to do these questions, then you should definitely be able to clear NQT. So make sure that you complete these loops and patterns, maths and strings questions. They're not too difficult, they're not too easy also, but they're not too many. Like in Code Vita, you had to complete about 100 or 80 questions to get ready for the coding round. Here, just about these 20 questions will help you out. So go ahead and practice this. So some of the action points for you are, the first things first you need to do is log on to bit.ly/edyst_ccp. This will take you directly to the courses page of the edyst.com, of where the the coding preparation course is there. Click apply now and start your coding preparation. The best part about this coding preparation is not only that we have the previous year's TCS questions. Some of you are not at all familiar with programming concepts. We have warm up 1 and warm up 2 ready for you. So if you are not at all comfortable, you can first do warm up 1 and warm up 2 and then come to TCS previous year's questions. For TCS previous year's questions, actually just warm up 1 and a little bit of warm up 2 is fine, and you will be able to crack it. So make sure you go ahead and practice this TCS previous year's questions, so you'll be in a much better position to actually solve the NQT. So yes, that's it for this question. I don't know if there are any questions or doubts. So I'll just have a look at the chat, see if anybody has any doubts or questions, and let me just get back to you and reply to you on that. If you have still any questions or doubts, feel free to reach out to me on the chat right now. The other thing you could do is log on to edyst.com. There's a chat on the side. So if you can see, there's a chat on the right hand side over here. Please make sure just reach out to me. My name is Aneeq. You can see me over here on the top, Aneeq over here. So you can just check, reach out to me, or you can always reach out to one of our Edyst mentors. So you can reach out to the Edyst mentors. Let me just show you some of them. This is it, Ravi Edyst mentor. You can reach out to him as well if you have any doubts. Alternatively, you can also reach out to us on the given WhatsApp and email number. So if you have any doubts which you're not getting cleared right now, reach out to us on the WhatsApp and the email, and we are happy to cover your doubts. We'll reply by email, or we'll actually just cover that in an upcoming webinar. So yes, anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask us.
Right. The standard questions, as we always get, how do we prepare for the MCQ part of it, and are there enough reference material online for us to prepare?
Okay, so how do we prepare for the MCQ parts, and are there reference material? So the first thing I'd suggest everybody is don't be too afraid of your MCQs, because these are just very standard MCQs that are the subject matter of them is not alien to you. That is, you have seen this already in your first year, first semester or second semester. It's just that the MCQs are very tricky. So any MCQ that has related to pointers or increment or decrement operators are generally very tricky. You just need a lot of practice for that. We are going to cover a special webinar just for MCQs in another 2 days. So please make sure you stay tuned to that. Subscribe to this channel. You will get the notification for it. And by Wednesday, we are actually covering a webinar just for programming MCQs, where we'll cover the tips and tricks on how you can solve them.
One guest is asking, today is the first day I'm attending the webinar. Which video do you want me to start with so that I prepare well?
Okay, so which video should you start with if you're preparing the webinar, if you just joined the webinar? So somebody just joined the webinar for the first time. My answer would be, don't start with any specific video. Actually log on to edyst.com and go to the complete coding pack. The link is below. Sorry, the link is over here. So bit.ly/edyst_ccp. Log on to that and watch the first warm-up module and start doing the codes over there. The first warm-up module is completely free. Please do that. That is the best thing you can do right now to revise your concepts of programming. After that, you can start watching the leap year video and the string arrangement video. These two will be helpful for you.
One guest is asking, I wrote TCS Code Vita, did not clear it. Do you think this will be much easier than that?
Okay, so somebody is asking that they wrote TCS Code Vita but they didn't clear that. So will this be easier than that? The coding round of NQT will be much easier than Code Vita. Code Vita had this thing where they're taking multiple concepts and then they're building up those multiple concepts. This is generally not the case in NQT. NQT generally has easier questions. Having said that, NQT also has things like verbal and the quantitative aptitude. So I hope you are prepared with those parts also, because they will have certain sectional cutoffs. Make sure that you are able to clear those sectional cutoffs also, but the coding part will be much easier than Code Vita.
So two related questions. One, are there any negative marks in the coding round of TCS Ninja? Two, how do we know about the number of test cases passed? Is there partial mark or any scope for partial fulfillment of test cases?
Okay, so two questions that we have got related to the marking in the coding questions. So the first thing is there any negative marking very specific to the coding round? As far as I know, there is no negative marking in the coding round. That is, nobody will penalize you for giving the wrong answer multiple times. What matters is finally if you got the correct answer or not. Where depending on partial marking, I will suggest that you read the instructions on that day itself of the code, because they keep changing it. Last year it was there, but they may change it every year. So please make sure you read the instructions properly. Similarly, the same thing I'd say for negative marking. Negative marking, even in the MCQs. So if you go for quants or English, it changes every year. Make sure you read the negative marking not only for the section, but really very specific to that particular question also. Please read that instruction carefully before attempting any of those questions.
Somebody is asking, sir, you keep telling about the free module. Can you please show me the free module and also tell me how many questions can we do free without paying?
All right, so somebody is asking about the free module that we have. Once you log in, you will automatically see this big box over here, which is called warm-up basics of programming and preview free tutorials and coding exercises. Here you have 5 video tutorials free of cost to use. You can view all of the 5 video tutorials. For example, how you can take input. We have in fact reading material in all of the 4 languages, so you can all of the 4 languages syntaxes are covered, and we have 10 coding questions for you to do free. So make sure you at least do those, because you will get a feel of doing how it happens on an online compiler. So do those 5 free video tutorials and 10 coding questions.
One question, what kind of jobs will we get if we get into TCS through Ninja or through Code?
Okay, so what kind of jobs will we get? What's the difference between the jobs we get from TCS Code Vita versus TCS Ninja? Well, as per TCS's official words, or rather the way they are wording it, generally speaking, if you get through Code Vita, then the kind of projects that you're given are different. You're sort of fast tracked, you're sort of given a different sort of projects, whereas with Ninja, you're given a different kind of project. Having said that, post hiring completely depends on TCS. They do have a differentiation between Ninja and digital, where digital is a different role, different type of responsibilities. But within Code Vita, how they would differentiate between NQT and NQ and Code Vita depends on them. Generally, what we have heard is that those who are gone through Code Vita are generally more fast tracked, whereas NQT is generally on the normal track.
So this is more of a clarification than a question. We understand that people who clear Code Vita round 2 or the interview round, they need not write Ninja. Is that right?
Okay, so what someone asking is someone who's cleared Code Vita round 2, that is, who's gone through the interview process for Code Vita round 2, do they have to write NQT or not? So you do not have to write NQT. Very specifically, all of those people who cleared Code Vita round 1 this week, even just before NQT, that's third and fourth is NQT. Before that, they have all got call letters. If you have not got a call letter, that mostly means you have not been selected for next round of Code Vita. Many of the Edyst students are already in the round two, that is, they're giving the interviews. So all the best to you, everybody, for that, whoever is watching the video. But yes, those, if they clear this, they need not write NQT at all.
Okay. So one last question. Binu is asking, can we have a session on string manipulation because they're slightly more complex?
Okay, so can we have a session on string manipulation? So, hey, good to see you. So, one thing I would suggest is just go back to the previous webinar we did on Friday, which is called string arrangement. I covered very specifically in how C and C++ you can actually do a lot of the string manipulation. Today also I use the property of ASCII values. So make sure that you watch the string arrangement, and if you still have certain doubts after watching the string arrangements, please hit out to us on the email ID that's given here, or log on to edyst.com and chat with me personally, and I'll either me or Ravi, who's an Edyst mentor, both of us, you can just reach out to us and we're more than happy to assist you in whatever problems you're having in string manipulation. Right, so that's it. I think some of you have very specific doubts about what happens if like if you want to print out more and more spaces, or if there were odd number of spaces, even number, all of that. See, I'll again say that ask those three fundamental questions: how many rows, how many columns, what is the pattern of the elements. If you're still not able to get that from those questions, make sure that you just log on to edyst.com and chat with either me or Ravi, and we'll be personally help you out with your doubt. All right, so try out this specific question. Those of you are already signed up on the Edyst platform, try this specific question of alphabet pattern, and do ask us any questions if you have any doubts. If you have, all the best for your NQT preparation and all of the other campus rounds that are going to happen with you. All the best for that, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you on the platform. All the best.